is ready to spin the big wheel of birth with me. Let's see what today brings. Today I have birth plans. Birth plans. So a birth plan is a document that a couple puts together about their preferences for labor and birth and their newborn. They bring it to the hospital or their birth center, wherever they're giving birth, or give it to their home birth midwife, and it lays out their top priorities and their preferences for birth. Now, a couple of thoughts about birth plans. First of all, in recent years, I have heard them sometimes get a bad reputation. There's this really pitiful joke about the longer your birth plan, the more likely you're going to have a cesarean, which is just so disappointing. That being said, however, as a doula and a childbirth educator, I encourage my clients to do a one-page birth plan if possible, so that really their preferences aren't diluted by things that maybe aren't as important. So things that you would put on your birth plan include your preferences for how you're planning to cope through labor contractions. Are you planning to use movement, avoid pain medication? Are you hoping for an epidural, and at what time is your epidural preference? You might have preferences about who's in the room. You might have some health history that you'd like to include on your birth plan. Maybe you want to include any kind of allergies, any information that the nurses, the midwives, and the doctors, all of your care providers working with you for your birth, that they could provide a better care for you if they knew this information. So, any little detail, if you've experienced any kind of trauma in your past, especially any type of sexual trauma, you might put on your birth plan. Most of these things are not something that you should introduce on your birth plan, that you should have conversations with your care providers prior, so that they're familiar with all your preferences. So try to get a one page together that has all of your really top information on your preferences, including, I like to add the end section for preferences for baby. So do you have any specifics for the newborn care procedures, for bathing, all of those skin to skin and that type of thing? Now, if there's hospital policies that you know that they always do, so say they always do a skin to skin first hour with the baby, maybe you don't add that on your birth plan. If you're trying to keep it to one page and you need to take something out, you don't necessarily need to put hospital policies that are just routine, because those are routine. So really limit it to those really specific things. So once you put something together, make sure that you share it with your care providers in plenty of time in advance. Your 30-week appointment, you're somewhere in that time frame, so that if there's any concerns on there, so say one of your preferences is you want to give birth in the water, and you don't talk this over or bring the birth plan to your care provider's office and discuss it with them, and you get into labor and they say, oh, sorry, you didn't qualify, you're not able to give birth in the water, or we don't offer it at this hospital, or we stopped doing water birth. You really need to have those conversations ahead of time. And if you're in a practice with several different care providers, which most people are, I would suggest that you bring it to every appointment that you can, as far as, talking it through with each. Or if they put it in your healthcare file, just making sure, just asking like, hey, did you see my birth plan? Was there anything that we should discuss ahead of time that might seem like a challenge and or might not seem doable? So sometimes people don't like to call it a plan if they feel like it's too rigid. You can always call it your birth preferences. But a lot of times when we get to our birthing location, our care providers, our nurses will say, did you bring your birth plan? It's because they like to look it over. And if there's a shift change, it's a nice way to share information among the nurses and the providers. So birth plans can be a great way to communicate your desires for birth with your team so that they can provide the best care for you, in particular, individualized care. So I recommend them, and I recommend a one page. And at the minimum, even if you don't feel comfortable for some reason sharing it with your providers, it's a great activity. It's a great thing to go through with your partner and make sure that you guys are on the same page for your birth plan. So for your birth and your preferences. So let me know if you have any thoughts or comments about birth planning. I'll put some links below. If you found this video helpful, I sure do appreciate a like. It helps other people find the video, and YouTube, subscribe to the channel and you'll get notified for our next video. Have a great day. Good luck with your planning. Bye guys.